Well, praise the Lord, everyone. Good to see you in Sunday school today. Clock on the wall says it's time to get going. Aren't you glad to be in church today? Another beautiful Sunday that the Lord has blessed us with, and thankful for this beautiful weather. Also thankful to be in Sunday school on Mother's Day. And mothers, this is a day that we will celebrate you all day, I hope, and give you some recognition that you very much deserve. I sure thank the Lord for all of our mothers. Let's give all of our mothers a good hand this morning. We'll have the rest of our, most of our service today will be centered around our mothers and what all they have meant to us. We can't say enough good things about our mothers. Even if your mother wasn't as good as you would like for it to be, she still gave you birth and gave you life. You can't help but be thankful for mothers today. And I'm so glad we have a day to honor our mothers. And this is going to be your day. And we want to give you all the honor that is due to you. Let's all stand this morning, go to the Lord in prayer. You can tell my voice is still not too good, but maybe it'll be tolerable at least this morning to get through. At least get through Sunday school. Prayer request today is Sister Helen Sellers, remember her. Kermit Cantrell, Ryan Austin, this is Brother Chad's brother, remember him. Some of these are ones that we had on here last Sunday. Brother Bishop, pastor at Victory Church, still needs a touch on his body. Brother Ricky Butler, Brooks Pratt, Fred Dillman, Travis Carter, which is Sister Con's brother, I think, so let's remember him in our prayer. Do you have a prayer request this morning that you'd like to make known? Remember Jackie Jernigan, too. He's also back in the hospital. He's had a lot of sickness, so let's keep him in our prayers. All right, let's remember the Kay family, Dr. Kay. Most of you that live in town will know Dr. Kay passed away yesterday, so let's keep this family in our prayers for comfort during this time. Anyone else have a request? Brother Chad? All right, let's remember Destiny and Alex going through some transition in their jobs and relocating. All of that is a lot of pressure, a lot of stress on you if you've never been through it. You don't know what it is, but if you have, it's easy to pray for somebody like this. And they'll be going through some trying next few days, but let's hold them up in our prayers that they would be where they need to be and get everything fixed like it needs to be. The Lord just knows how to do all things, you know. He's just not a God of one thing, and he's just not a God of sickness or a God of salvation, but he can do anything that you can ask. He said, I'll do it if you'll ask it in my name. And so we'll remember this request this morning. Anyone else have a request? Good to see Brother Bill Cutshaw and Sister Lillian Cutshaw back with us. Give them a big hand today. I'm so glad to see y'all. They're some of my best friends. Anyone else have a prayer request? Yes, ma'am. All right, let's keep her in our prayers this morning. The Lord's able to touch and move. No matter what the situation is, God can do it. He's the right man for the job, so let's keep that in our prayers. Anyone else today? Let's remember our church service. We've got a great service, as I said today, planned, and with our mothers, honoring our mothers, but I would like to have what the Lord would want us to have during all this service, so let's pray for our service throughout the day. Brother Rogers, lead us to the Lord in prayer today. Amen. You may be seated this morning. Ushers, come on and get our Sunday school offering. If you have a Sunday school offering you'd like to give today, they'll be glad to take care of it for you. Appreciate our ushers, and I appreciate you for giving. That's the only way the church is able to function is through your tithes and offering. We're not like a lot of churches maybe you've been to before. Our church has been here for 65 plus years. I don't know how many exactly, but it's been here a long, long time. And we've never, what you see on these church grounds is all 100% paid for by our saints and our people that come to our church here. And we've never had to have a fundraiser for the church, but we've always been able to function with the tithes and offering that the people have give, and to be good stewards of your money and putting it toward the work of the Lord. And I'm thankful for that. I'm not downing anybody for having a fundraiser for the church or for different functions, but it's odd to me when we talk about the Pentecostal people talk so much about faith, and we're the ones that usually have to have the fundraisers. I don't know if that really makes sense or not, but sometimes I think we try to do more than what we're able to do, but thankful the church has always had very good management, and everything here is paid for, totally paid for, except our lights and water. We pay for that every month, and the insurance. Everything else is paid for, and I'm thankful for that. Thankful for the church people that has done that throughout the years. I'm going to talk today about mothers, the unsung heroes of our day, and mothers are that person. They have probably the most impact on our lives of anybody in our lives is our mothers. I had a little Who Am I questionnaire thing that I read online this past week, so I wrote it, jotted part of it down. And it says, who am I? There's a container of neon silly slime in my purse and a half-eaten squashed strawberry Pop-Tart in my jacket pocket. My heart pounds for Mr. Rogers, and Barney the pink dinosaur has become my best friend. At any given moment, I may be carrying a wad of half-chewed gum or the remains of whatever's yucky from a child's mouth. I wash my children's face with spit and my thumb. I wipe their noses with my skirt tail and show their rashes to everyone that will look. I'm sure you've seen me at the market. I'm the one with the permanent stain on my shoulder, the one with the dirty footprints on my skirt. You've probably seen me at the mall even, trying to maneuver a stroller with a crying baby and trying to catch a child that seems to be in 12 different places at one time. I'm the one with the worn-out blankie and the Cabbage Patch doll with one arm. I'm the one with a red face of embarrassment after discovering my child used the display toilet at Lowe's. Not number one, number two. You know me by the glazed look on my face after answering for the millionth time, no, I do not know what worms eat. I sniff a baby's diaper on purpose. I eat leftover baby food smeared on toast for breakfast. I consider myself in heaven if I get a bath by myself. I eat standing up, I drink leftover milk, and eat the crust nobody wants. I once had a stomach that didn't fall to the floor. I had hips that didn't serve as baby saddles. I had hair that was actually combed at times. Who am I, you ask? Well, you open my purse for identification. You'll find diapers, new and used, zip lockers full of Cheerios and leaky sippy cups, a handful of McDonald's napkins, a worn-out pacifier, a bottle of baby Tylenol and gas drops for a baby. You know me, I'm the bleary-eyed from being up all night from the teething baby, and I'm the teary-eyed from worrying about a toddler that refused to eat. I'm damp from baby drool, and Lord only knows what else. Maybe you've seen me at church. I'm the one with my skirt on backwards, looking like I just exited a hurricane. I know you don't know my name. I hardly know my name anymore either. To be honest, I don't even remember my first name. I'm just referred to myself as Mommy. Mommy says don't poke the cat's eyes out. Mommy said that's not nice. Mommy said if you don't stop kicking, Mommy's going to get you. Oh, I have good days when you get through breakfast without spilling cereal or go through the day without the cat getting baptized in the toilet. Days when they all nap at the same time, and on these days I feel powerful, in control, and I say, I am Mommy, hear me roar. I can give a bottle to a baby, prepare dinner, tie shoes, and talk on the phone and fold laundry all at the same time. But now you know who I am. I am Mommy. I don't need a gift. I don't need a potted plant. I need a nap. Well, I love our mothers, don't you? You are the ones that go through things that, just us guys couldn't handle, just tell you the truth. And just seemingly y'all were made for the job. And it wouldn't be a world at all before long if we didn't have mothers. There's a 100% chance today, if you're here, that you had a mother. 100%. There's also a very good chance that your mother is probably one of your closest friends, or at least has been one of your closest friends. This is not everybody's case, I know, but the majority of us here today have certain bonds with our mothers that just is not like anyone else. So today I want to honor our mothers and talk about our mothers, how blessed we are to have our mothers. Many times mothers are taken for granted, and seemingly they're on the back burner trying to get the kids going and raise the kids and do this and do that, and they don't get a lot of spotlight. But I would like to spotlight our mothers today, even those of you that feel like that you are very seldom ever noticed. We want to notice and make mention and honor you all today. So thankful for our mothers. The official Mother's Day holiday arose in the early 1900s as a result of the efforts of Anna Jarvis. She was never married, she never had kids, but she was inspired by her mother that had made sacrifices for them. Then in 1908, the very first Mother's Day was celebrated at a Methodist church in West Virginia. It was a huge success, and Anna Jarvis proceeded to push for a national holiday to honor all of our mothers. Her persistence paid off, and in 1914, President Woodrow Wilson signed into order the second Sunday in May each year as Mother's Day. And I'm glad we have Mother's Day. Mother has probably been the one that's most impacted your life all throughout your years, whether you had a perfect childhood or not. I know you want to make mention and love about the love for your mother. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my mom today, and then if we have time at the end of our Sunday school lesson, I would like to hear about your mom also, if you have something you'd like to say about her. It's so easy to talk about mother, isn't it? Most of us have had a good mother, and it's so easy to talk about her and be appreciative of her. Most of you knew my parents. Most of you here knew my parents. Both were exceptional. At least I feel that way. I feel that I was very blessed to have both of them. My mom was a real mild-mannered person most of the time. Didn't see her get upset hardly ever, unless you messed with her kids. She was a bulldog when you messed with her kids. And she didn't make allowance for her kids. I mean, she didn't make allowance for us. If we done wrong, we just done wrong. We was going to get in trouble for it. But she never set aside when she felt like her kids were being mistreated. That's the way a mother should be. They should fight for their kids. And she wouldn't wait till Daddy come home. If we done something that was out of line, I mean, she'd wear us out. She'd cut a limb. Have you ever been whipped with a little keen switch limb, a little green, like a piece, little pea switch or apple tree switch or something? Well, those things will wear your legs out. And she did not hesitate. She wouldn't hesitate one bit if we was in trouble or got in trouble to take care of business right then and there. That was one thing I appreciated about it. But one thing she always did was make sure we had plenty of food to eat and clean clothes to wear and a bed to sleep in. usually, after growing up and getting married, getting out on our own, usually on Sunday afternoons, we went over there and ate lunch on Sunday, and that's probably one thing I miss worse than anything, especially in my latter years, is we always had such a good time on Sunday because we'd come home from church. Well, she'd got up early on Sunday morning, started preparing and cooking, and had everything kind of setting aside, mostly ready. Wasn't had to do nothing but just maybe heat up some rolls or something for the rest of it. But she'd got up early and fixed, and we'd go over there just about every Sunday and have lunch with them. And that's one thing I probably miss as much as I do anything about her. But she was a great mother. My mom was a great mother. I had great childhood memories. She used to fix these little Kool-Aid pops, freeze pops. I don't know if y'all remember them. Some of you older ones will. You turn them upside down, they stuck down in the tray, and then you put your Kool-Aid mixture in it, and then put that little top down and had a little stick sticking out of the plastic. And you stick them in the refrigerator and or the freezer, and they would freeze. And seemed like, I don't know why that stuck out in my mind, but that's one thing in my childhood memories was when Mama used to say, "Kids, I've got you some freeze pops in the freezer." We'd go in there and get one, and by the time you could eat them, there's already dripping off your elbows and everything else. That's sticky. But that was some of the best times I ever had in my life, and I still think back over it and remember what a good time that we were having as growing up as kids. Saturday was usually a work day for us. We went to school. Usually, Daddy preached most every night, especially through the summertime, just about every week somewhere. And sometimes we got to go, sometimes we didn't get to go. But Saturday was the day that mother didn't have to work, Dad didn't have to work, so we worked at the house all day, and it was usually a long day's work. But I remember getting up early and getting started, and then for lunch we'd come in, and Mom would always have she'd cook us a hamburger. Back then, hamburgers were cheap. Ground beef was cheap. That was probably the cheapest thing you could feed your kids at that time was a hamburger. And or she'd make pimento and cheese, homemade pimento and cheese, and I loved homemade pimento and cheese. And it seemed like after a hard day's work, when you come in and for lunch and break, and eat a hamburger or some homemade pimento and cheese, it was so good. Daddy always loved her pimento and cheese, homemade pimento and cheese, and it was wonderful. Still remember those childhood memories. But she took care of her kids. That's one thing she done was took care of her kids. Made sure we was taken care of. One day I had been outside, and I'd come inside. It was cold outside. I had a flannel shirt on. Some of you may remember telling this. Actually, some of you could remember this maybe. But I came inside, and I always like to back up against the stove. Do y'all do that? I do, against the oven or whatever. It's just when it's warm to my back, I'll do that in the summertime sometimes, just because I like to feel that heat coming off on my back. And I was especially bad to do that in the wintertime. But we came in from outside not knowing that Mom had turned the stove eyes on to cook lunch. So when I came in with a flannel shirt, I could feel that stove eye warm, so I backed up to it, thinking it was already been turned off instead of just turned on. Not unbeknownst to me, I didn't ever think I'd get to use that word, but I've heard it before. Not knowing what I was doing, I backed up against the stove eye, and the tail of my flannel shirt just laid right down over the eye, which I did not know at the time. But as the eye heated up and came on, it was just those little round circular electrical eyes, that came on red hot. And by the time I knew what was happening, I looked behind me, and flames was already crawling up my back, burning that shirt off of my back. And, of course, I hollered and jumped away from the stove. And when Mother seen it, she just instantly turned around, didn't grab a towel or anything, just took her hands and grabbed that shirt and just wiped it until she put it out. And all for probably 3 or 4 days after that, maybe longer than that, she'd have gel and paste on her fingers and hands where she had actually just took the fire right off of my back and put it out with her bare hands. That's a mother. That's what a mother does. And as I told you, I appreciate my mother this morning, and gone, but I sure miss her And what can you say about a mother's love? Unconditional. It'll override all barriers and take care of others. My mother was brought up poor and simple, but her love for others was overwhelming. She died when she was working in home health and trying to help somebody else. That's one of her great things, is if I can help somebody else, if I can help somebody else. Now let me talk to you this morning about from the Bible for a few minutes. And I can talk to you about Jochebed, Moses' mother, which was a great mother. And you know how she hid Moses out and eventually wound up taking care of Moses all through his growing up years. She would be a great example if we was wanting to talk to her as an example for our mothers. Or I could talk about Hannah even. She was a great mother. The mother of Samuel prayed until she had no voice left for her child. God, give me a child. And you know the story. God finally gave her a child. And she took the child at a proper age and took him back and dedicated him to God. And he stayed in the temple. Probably no greater prophet ever than Samuel. He's probably one of the greatest prophets ever. And it was mostly due to his mother. Because Eli was in the temple, but he wasn't much count anymore. His about over. His part was about over. I could talk about several other women in the Bible and speak on these ladies, but I want to talk to you about someone this morning, a lady that actually was never mentioned in the Bible by name or even referenced in the Bible. You say, well, how are you going to talk to me about a mother of the Bible that was never named or ever made reference to? Well, I hope to show you that even though you feel insignificant, mothers, sometimes in your role, you're one of the most impactful persons that is on planet Earth today. More powerful than the president. More powerful than the Sunday school teacher. More powerful than the pastor. You have more impact over people than you realize. That's what I want to talk to you about this morning. You may feel like today that this is one of those days, but I assure you, before we get done today, we're going to make you feel special. So let me relate to a story to you from, actually this was wrote about in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. All recorded this event because it was so significant. It was such a big event in their lives. All four of these wrote about it. I debated whether to read it from all four accounts and knew I was probably going to be short on time if I did that. Some have a few details that are a little bit different, but for the most part, all of them saw the same thing, witnessed the same thing, had the same high points in their story. Now here's the setting. John the Baptist has just been beheaded. Herod has got John the Baptist, put him in jail, cut his head off. They brought his head to him on a charger. Well, that's awful gruesome stuff back then. But there was a lot of stress within the disciples' rank because this was considered one of the greatest men of God in the New Testament, John the Baptist, the forerunner, the progenitor of Jesus Christ. There's no greater, that the Lord said, than John the Baptist. I mean, he was a great man, and now he's had his head cut off. So that's caused a lot of stress among the disciples, and the disciples go and recover John's body and laid it in a tomb, and I believe Jesus was weary. I believe his disciples were weary. This was a very sad time for them. So let's pick up in Mark 6 and 29. I chose to read it out of Mark today, so if you'll follow along with me, and said, and when his disciples heard of it, this is talking about John the Baptist's death, and when the disciples heard of it, they came and took up the corpse and laid it in a tomb. Now this is a lot of stress on someone. Someone has been beheaded. You have to go recover the corpse, wrap it, put it in a tomb, whatever they done back then. The disciples were under a lot of pressure. And verse 30 says, and the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus and told him all the things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said unto them, this is Jesus saying unto the disciples, come ye yourselves apart into a desert place Let me tell you a little bit about a desert place in the Bible. It's not like the Sahara Desert. It's not like a dry, desolate place like lots of sand and armadillos like we think of our deserts, and maybe gecko lizards and that kind of thing, and cactus plants. A desert place in the Bible times was just an uncultivated area. They even called it going through the wilderness in Moses' day. Was in the wilderness for 40 years. Actually, that was not like a jungle setting. It was more of just uncultivated land. Sometimes it was even pasture land that they called a desert place. Did not mean it was dry and bone dry and all this, but it means it was just an uncultivated and unsettled piece of land. Now Jesus says, "Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat." In other words, they didn't even have time to eat as they'd been so busy. Jesus recognizes that and said, "Come apart." So they departed into a desert place by ship privately. That's the reason I'm telling you that it was not necessarily a dry place, because they departed to a desert place by ship privately. John said this was a city by Bethsaida. That's where they went to. Bethsaida is, the name means a house of fish. So it was probably right on a seaport area where they exited to. It's right near Bethsaida. That's important because this story involves fish. Verse 33 says, "And the people saw them departing, and many knew him and ran afoot thither out of all the cities, and outwent them and come together to him." So what happened is the people in the cities notices Jesus and the disciples getting on a ship to go to this certain place. Well, instead of just letting them have a little leisure time, no rest for the weary, they took off ahead of them, and and when Jesus gets there to where they were going to take a break and rest, there was a multitude of people already standing there waiting on them. They got ahead of them. And Jesus, when he came out, saw much people and was moved with compassion toward them, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. In other words, they were just wandering around everywhere. Jesus starts teaching them, and when the day was far spent, his disciples came unto him. Remember, the disciples was going here to take a little break. They hadn't even had enough time to eat yet. Then when they get there to where they was going to eat, this house of fish, there was all this multitude of people. So when the day was far spent, the disciples came to him and said, "There's a desert place. This is a desert place, and now the time is far past." In other words, we're starving to death, Lord. We came here to eat and take a little break, and you've taught all day long. Send them away that they may go into the country round about and into the villages and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat. This was some setup we've got here. Disciples say, "Lord, we're hungry ourselves. We're wore out. The day is far spent. The sun is going down. The people are hungry. You wore out. You've taught all day. Now send them to get something to eat, and let's go to the house," is what he was saying. I've about had it. And he answered and said unto them, "Give ye them to eat." Are you joking, Lord? This is a desert place. Maybe you hadn't noticed, there's 5,000 plus people out here. Jesus just turned to them and said, "You feed them." Lord, you're kidding. Now, that's a joke. I mean, can you imagine what this felt like with them tired and frustrated and hungry? I don't know about you, but I get edgy when I get tired and hungry both. I know I'm edgy. I know I'm on the edge. Matter of fact, I've even caught myself saying, "Now that was kind of rude what you just said, or your remarks or what you said." I said, "Yeah, I know it. That wasn't too good. I'm on the edge. I'm tired. I'm wore out, and I'm hungry." Trying to make an excuse for it. But that's just where the disciples were at. And they say unto him, Shall we go and buy 200 pennies worth of bread and give them to eat? In other words, if we went and bought bread with all the money we could muster up, how would we tote it back? Lord, look what you're asking. 5,000 men here, plus the women and children, probably 10,000 people there. I don't know if you've ever been a crowd of 10,000 people. That's a lot of people. The Lord tells the disciples, 12 of you, go get them something to eat. 10,000 people. And the disciples are wore out themselves. They say, Lord, if we had enough money to buy something for 10,000 people, how would we even get it back to? This is an impossible task, Lord, that you've asked us. And he said unto them, How many loaves have you? Go and see. And when they knew, they said, 5 loaves and 2 fishes. So they're done with the task of going out among 10,000 people. Hey, Brother Rogers, what'd you bring for lunch today? I ain't got nothing. Hey, sister, you got anything for lunch? And I ain't got nothing. What about you? You got anything for lunch? I didn't bring nothing. Amy, what about you? I run off and didn't bring anything this morning. What about you, Sister Connie? You got anything for lunch? Till they went around to 10,000. 10,000 people. And they came up with 5 loaves and 2 fishes. John says in his writing, we found a lad here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fishes. But what is that among so many? What is that among so many? In other words, that's going to feed the boy. That's about it. And he commanded them to make all sit down by companies upon the green grass. That's another reason this wasn't a dry place. They're sitting on the green grass. And they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by 50s. And when they had taken the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, or when he had taken the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, he looked up to heaven and blessed the loaves and gave them to his disciples. Now here's a very important thing to realize. The miracle did not happen when Jesus looked up and prayed. It happened when he put it in the hands of the disciples. That's when the miracle really happened. He put this in the hands of the disciples to set before them, and the 2 fishes divided he among all them. And they did all eat and were all filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of fragments and of the fishes. And why did they take up 12 baskets? I tell you why, because there's 12 disciples. There was 12 disciples that had not eaten all day long. God said, not only am I going to provide them, I want each one of you to know what has happened here. I want each one of you to experience what has happened. This is a huge miracle. Peter, this is a huge miracle. Go take up what you can. And he brought back a whole basket full of food. John did the same thing. 12 baskets full, so the disciples would know what kind of miracle this was. And they did all eat of the loaves. This is verse 44. I think we might have got a little behind here. And they that did eat of the loaves were about 5,000 men, not counting the women and the children. So why did I read you this story this morning on Mother's Day? Because there was one very important person that was not mentioned or not referenced in this story, but she fed approximately 10,000 people. Did nobody else have nothing? Probably what happened, the boy was getting ready to go out for the day, and Mama said, son, you're going to get hungry before you get done with the day. I packed your lunch. Here's your lunch. Not knowing, that seems so insignificant. See, you moms do things for kids, and you say it seems like it's so insignificant, so they don't even take it, they don't even thankful for it. They just running, just take it for granted. You never know what you're doing when you do those insignificant deeds. Mama packed a little boy's lunch, not knowing that she was fixing to feed 10,000 10,000 people out of that one lunch bag. Her name was never mentioned. It was never referenced. But the thoughts and the actions of one mother not only fed 10,000 people. How many moms can say, I have fed the 12 disciples? I fed Peter, I fed James, I fed John, I fed Luke, I fed all these 12 disciples. How many mothers could say that? Probably none could have said that. Not only did she feed 10,000 people, she fed 12 disciples. Not only did she feed 12 disciples, she fed Jesus Christ himself. She fed Jesus Christ. A lady that was not even mentioned. Her name was never mentioned. But what an impact she had. She fed 10,000, the disciples, and the one and only Jesus Christ. A one little lunch she packed. Women, you never know what the things that you're doing, what they're meaning to somebody else. You have the most important, impactful job of anybody in the world. Now let me finish up with this. Matthew 25:32 says, And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from the other, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, and the goats on the left. Then shall the king say to them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, Lord, when saw we thee and hungered and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in? When did we see you naked and we clothed you? When saw we the sick or in prison and came unto you? In other words, I never knew I was doing that. I didn't even realize that. You was sick, you was hungry, and I done all that. Lord, when did I do this? They didn't even know when they did it. It seemed so insignificant. And the king answered and said unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto me, of the least of these, my brethren, you have done it unto me. That's where I believe our mothers are. Sometimes they feel like that their job is never done, and probably is never done, just tell you the truth. Work sun up to sundown, and kids from can to can't. And a mother's work is never done. I'm sure of that. And the things you seem like you're doing don't really make a lot of difference. Let me tell you, you're making an impact on the world. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. I don't know if you've ever heard that song or not, but it's a pretty good song. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Let me tell you, mothers, you are more important this morning than you've ever been. We have a generation coming up that has no respect for God, no respect for law, no respect for each other. Your job is more important right now than it has ever been. We have some of the greatest mothers coming to Gospel Tabernacle in the world, and you're important. Every one of you are so important. And I want you to know from Gospel Tabernacle this morning, the lunch you pack could be feeding 10,000 people. You are very important. Would anyone here be willing to talk about their mother? Anybody like to say anything about their mother? Just any, I know Sister Amy would. I know her mama. Tell us something about
She is always a positive person, usually has a happy day every day, and tries to encourage others, and she's a real encourager and positive person.
I don't know how many of y'all know Miss Vernell, but she's a super sweet one. Anyone else want to tell us about your mama?
One of the best things I love about my mom, she taught me. listen to.
Well, that is important now, isn't it? Teach your kids how to pray. Anybody else want to say anything about their mom?
My mom was a very loving mother in her own way. She did the best that she could by me and my brother. She was the type of person, if she seen you, she known you for a while. She would take her shirt off her back to give it to whoever. And she always taught me that regardless of what you're going through, keep your head up and to believe in God and to always make sure that you do right by the next person, because you never know what anyone's going through. That if you can take something that you don't no longer need, to pass it on to the next person, because it doesn't belong to us. We're only here temporary, and one day we're going to go home to God.
That is true compassion, and isn't that a common trait that we see among our mothers, how compassionate they are, how true they are? Sister Barbie? This should be easy.
Yeah, I have one of the greatest mothers. She always sacrificed for me. She's always been there for me. That pretty much sums it up. She's loved me even when I didn't love myself.
Aren't you thankful for her? It's a common thing, seemingly, too, among our mothers that, you want to tell us about your mother, Brother Rogers? That they always think about the other person. Have you noticed that?
Amen. My mama, she give her time, she give her prayers for me to live for God and to serve God. My mom was in the hospital this week. Stomach was bothering her. She got out of the hospital Friday, but you don't have but one mom. And they sacrificed for each and every one of our lives. The Lord sacrificed for us, but our mothers did too. So did our fathers. The prayers that your mothers prayed for you is not gone void. Those prayers are going up before the throne of God. And He hears those prayers that those mothers pray. A song that they sang on the radio when mother prayed, heaven paid attention, because mother's just as important to life as a father is. And a mother's going to love you at all times. It don't matter what you do, the mother's going to love you. And I'm so thankful for my mother today. She's still alive. She's 81-year-old today. She's 81 now, but she's been an inspiration to me in my life to live for God and serve God. That's the most important thing in all of our lives, is serve God, live for God.
Make it a point, if your mom's still alive, to go and talk to her at least today, at least a phone call if you can't get in touch. If you can't actually go see her, go and talk to her. Sister Connie has got one of the greatest mothers in the world that we all know, is Sister Wilbanks. I'm going to let Sister Connie talk about her today.
Well, I could say a whole lot about my mom. I am who I am today because of her. And one thing that I've always thought, and not only me, but visitors have said, when they walk in my mom's house, there's just a special feeling there. Because Mama covers her house in prayer, and I'm so thankful for that.
Can't beat that. Anyone else want to say anything about their mom? Brother Gary Sellers, this would be a perfect opportunity for you, my friend.
I'm so thankful for my mother. We never went without food, never went without clean clothes. I always knew she was praying for us. Even when we wasn't doing right, we knew that we could depend on her prayers.
I want us to give each one of our mothers another big hand this morning. None of us would be where we are today without our mamas. And if you want to get a 6'2", 225-pound guy riled up, say something about his mama. You can get 100% of him then on your shoulders before you can think about it. Most of the guys that I know, or most of the boys I know, usually are mama's boys. Mama usually dotes on them a little bit and takes a little special attention with the boys, and we always felt like, I always felt like growing up I was mama's favorite, really. I hated to tell Kendall and Greg that, and then when I got grown, we were talking about mom and daddy after I left, I found out she made them feel like they was the most important also. They was just as important as I was, and they felt like they was their favorite all the time. But that's the way mamas are. That's the way mamas do. I'm thankful for our moms today. We've got a special service today throughout the day for our mothers, and I can't wait to see what regular service looks like. It's going to be a great time. I know we're going to have a lot of mothers coming in this morning. But mothers, you're important. Well, what you do is so impactful on others' lives. Many times you don't know it, don't realize it, but you are making a positive impact on other people's lives. And I thank you for being here at Gospel Tabernacle today. Appreciate you being here. Hearts to hands, let me make mention of our hearts to hands is canned yams and stuffing mix. Put those on your grocery list, bring